What's going on, everybody? Junior Fishing Company here. Another tying video. I am going to tie today kind of like a realistic bait fish pattern. I either try to mimic something that's living in the water or try and stand out. That's where, fire tigers and your super bright pink or purples, whatever, come into play. But today I've got a cabin that in the lake, it's kind of like a reservoir, chain of lakes kind of thing. It's got short-nosed red horse. And so seeing that, I just kind of, I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well, I just Googled short-nosed red horse, and I'm going to try and kind of base my jig off of this. It's not going to be perfect, but you can just see it's kind of got, a solid red tail. There's a little red in the fins, and the body's kind of got a black, light olivey, a little bit of a golden body to it. So I've got a VMC Sleek Jig, 1/4 ounce, and this actually used to be like a fire tiger pattern. It's kind of like this, but I have some Do It mold paint, so I took the eyes off, dipped it in olive, and then I put some different eyes on there. And so I'm going to try and mimic this short-nosed red horse. They get really big. I mean, these things get like 20 plus inches. This is only going to be, I'm trying to get to 5. This is one of those jigs that you are at the mercy of your length of bucktail. This is really when that Primo stuff, you wonder why it's so much more, because I'm going to have to tie this as far back in this hook as I can get. Where my brass starts is about 5 inches, a little more, and so I can just barely get there right off the back of my hook. So I'm gonna have to tie a little bit differently, because these shanks are so long. If I tie something right here, then I have a huge gap. I could fill it with like chenille or something like that, but I don't really feel like doing that. So I'm going to actually put in, I'm going to make this red tail, I'm going to put 2 layers of, this is like a rusty orange kind of. I'm going to put 2 of these in there, and then I'm going to put a little flash, and then I've blended together some black, olive, golden brown for the body. And then one of them has a little bit of red in it as well, kind of mimicking those fins. So I've got just 210 red on my bobbin. And again, I'm going to try, I'm not going to put a rattle on this. I was thinking about it, but then I realized I'm going to have to tie in right, I don't want to tie on the hook bend. So I'm going to tie right before the bend of the hook. I'm going to do, and this is a really thin hook shank, and so I don't want too much deer hair in each of my bundles or whatever, I don't know, because it'll just rotate on your hook and you might not get a good, might not be. See, even with this amount, I rotate, so I got to get it really tight on there. And then I can kind of see there's something trapped on this side. You can see I'm just at the mercy of my length of bucktail. I could even, some of these don't want to play long. So I'm going to put another layer of this rusty orange in, and you can see it goes, it's going to be short, and there's nothing I can do because that's the way it's gonna have to go. I'm gonna put a little super glue down because this is gonna get chomped pretty good. I'm gonna come up just a little, and in that picture there's just a little bit, you probably can't even see it, there's a little bit of black in their tail. So I put just a little black, stack my hair, there's just a little bit of black in their tail. So I want to try and do that, and I have to cut these a little bit to really even out all these tips, but I lose a 1/4 inch or so of my tail. Maybe come up just a little more. I want a little bit of this by itself. I don't want to completely put them down at the same because I want it to thin out as you go down. So maybe I'll have to take a little more off. You always want to cord up your thread. So that looks like it might be good. And this, all this hair is from the very top of the tail. So it shouldn't have really any flare in it at all. I don't want this flared. But some tails are just different. You can kind of tell once you get to know a bucktail a little bit better that some tails will have none almost in the whole thing. And then some, it's hard to find a spot where it isn't, where you get a lot of air, trapped air in there. So before I put down another layer of deer hair, I'm going to put down some flash, and I'm not going to put down, this is Mirage Flashaboo Opal, but it's salt water, it's really thick. I don't want to cut off a bunch of this and have it, it wouldn't be like your standard holographic Flashaboo. I'm just really going to cut 2 of these off. This stuff lasts forever when you, so I've just got 2 of these, or 3, and I'm gonna lay them kind of flat on the side, and you can see just here how flashy it is. To me, this is more of a realistic shimmer. So I'm gonna put down on either side. I'm gonna go almost to the back. I want just a little extra hair that's going to be by itself, and I want this right on the side. And you can wrap this around your thread and do that kind of stuff, but for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to do this. And I really am not even worried about making this tinsel line up perfectly with the other one, because I really don't care, because it's so flashy anyway. I'm not going to really concern myself with that. And this stuff is super slick, so I'm going to put down some super glue, make sure that stays in. Okay, and then I'll come down, and now I'm going to start adding my body color. Alright, so that glue dried. Now I'm going to start adding my blended, I got 3 sections I'm going to do. I wish I knew all the names of the colors of this. I mean, I know I got all this at Musky Fool, and if you go to Musky Fool and you go to their Bucktail section, I mean, they have, I'll bet 50 different colors. I can't remember which one. I know there's a little olive, black, and golden something, and light golden something. And they have a bunch of funny names for them too. So this is a super thin layer. I don't even know how many fibers that is. 40. I want this one to be thin because this is going to be the one that mainly comes over the tail. And I don't want this to cover up too much of my color for my tail. And I'm not going to bring it all the way down. Just a little bit. So not quite at the end. But again, this is so thin that you're really going to be able to see through it. Two wraps. Good pinch down. Rotate it. And some of these tails I'm using had crazy flare. I actually ended up redoing this shot because some tails just, you can't avoid it. How much flare you get. I'm going to really rain down on this. And I'm going to put down another stack. What I ended up doing was I cut a little bit from each tail. I've got all the tails right here. I cut a little bit from each tail, and then I had one big stack, and then I split those up so that it's even. I'm not making 3 separate stacks. Well, 2. I'm not making 2 separate stacks. The one that's going by the head, I did because I want some extra flare. But that's a good way to make a pretty consistent bait, is to cut all your deer hair, and then just separate them into different stacks, I guess you could call them, so that it's an even distribution of color throughout. I'm going to put down a little bit of head cement. Just because I don't feel like waiting for super glue to dry, and this stuff isn't like crazy sticky. I'm going to put down one more stack, and then I'm going to add some more flash. So I want to just make sure that it's not gonna, you want a little bit, if all these hairs are the same, it's just gonna be one big body and then a thick tip. I want a really thin tail, so it'll help it kind of move a little bit in the water. So this one's got a little bit of that orange in it. It's probably like I think it's like a orangutan, or I can't remember what the color is. They've got a bunch of funny names over there. Make sure that it's all spread around, and that opal flash is still sticking through pretty good, which is what I want. And if I can get a little bit of flare out of that one. It really doesn't matter a ton with a jig like this if you've got a ton of flare, because you're not stripping it through the water, you're jigging it. So it can be matted down pretty good. You don't have to worry about it. So I've got that. Now I'm going to add 2 more of these Opal Mirage. I'm just going to lay them. I'm going to try and lay them with the first one I put down, just because I really don't need a ton of flash, because these are so flashy. I might go a little bit off. I'm definitely going to do shorter. It's probably about an inch shorter than the first ones I put in. And I'm right where I want to be. So those are going to be, I mean, it depends if you're fishing. If you're fishing super muddy water, this might not be the best jig for you to do. But where I'm going to be fishing this, it's usually, especially in the spring and fall, very clear water. So I've got my last stack here. I just need to really clean out all of these tiny hairs that I don't want in there. So this is my thickest stack, and it's got a little bit more black in it. Again, it's kind of hard to see, but this is going to be my so-called right by the head, right? So clean out, try and get all those little ones out, because when I flare this, I don't want too short of stuff. So if you watched the last video, you saw that my head's a little bit different. I'm kind of worried to go at it with a X-Acto knife, because I don't know how nice this paint is. I actually dipped this, so when I color a jig, I'll dip it in the olive, let it dry. I might do a second coat, and then I'll dip my jigs in head cement, because it adds a super thin layer of durability. I'll dip it, dry it, dip it, dry it, at least twice, sometimes 3. But it adds a little bit of a shimmer, and I make sure that the eyes are going to be in there better. You'll lose them eventually, but so you can see this is going to be about halfway down my bait, and you can kind of see a little bit where that hair kind of starts to stack a little bit. I'm going to take my hair, make sure it should be good, and I'm going to come and I'm going to have my hair the butts of my hair are going to be about halfway up my jig. And I'm going to get my thread as far up as I can, and I'm going to give it 2 loose wraps, and then I'm going to pull down kind of away from my jig. And this is a super bendy hook, so you want to be careful. And I don't want to flare the short butts. So I'm going to kind of get as many down as I can. Then I can kind of flare that other side. And now I can spin my hair around. This is always a messy part, but make sure that you get all around. Especially because it'll swim this way, so you don't want to miss any of that. A couple short ones in here. You just break them off. So that looks decent enough. I'm gonna, again, hold these down, and I'm going to pull up there, and you can kind of see now, I don't know if you can tell, I'm wearing these shirts that are just one solid color, hoping that it will help you see a little bit better. You can kind of see all of these flared a lot more, and then I'm going to get a couple good wraps. I'm going to pull down, pull towards me, pull up. I'm going to pull all around, because I want to make sure that those hairs are going to be at least locked in while I do this next step. And yeah, those are nice and flared. So I'm going to bring this up just loosely so I can get it as far over here as I can. I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, and I'm going to come in here right on my thread. And again, sometimes if you buy the cheaper jigs, the paint will chip. But for me, that's worth it. Alright, so now I've got that pretty much trimmed, and I'm going to try and add a little bit more flare, but there's quite a bit. So now I can just pull these back and just get my collar set up. Make sure that I've got, there'll be hairs that are sticking through. I want to make sure I cover those. Alright, so now I can really, I really don't want to whip finish. So I'm just going to do a half hitch. Make sure you don't get any of those hairs. I'm going to do a half hitch. And then I'm going to put down my head cement. Should have just whip finished, but that's alright. Now that head cement's going to soak into even some of those deer hairs too. So, 1/4 ounce. Let's see if we can pull her up. 1/4 ounce. You got the red tail, a little bit of black, some golden. Red tail. Golden, little olive, some black, big ol' eyes. It was going to be hard to match the head, but I went with olive. I figured that'd probably be the best bet. So there's your short-nosed red horse sucker pattern jig. VMC. I like these. Like almost like the barbarian trebles. Not sure what size it is. Probably says on the package. I didn't care to look. Thanks for watching. Junior's Fishing Company on Instagram, juniorsfishing.com. Yeah, more videos to come. The next one I'm going to do is going to be a little bit different. I got a really cool like bluish green tail and this is cerise. I'm going to figure out what head I'm going to mix with those. So give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, whatever. We'll see you on the next one.